The Ukrainian conflict is half a world away. But what if it were on our borders? It might look something like this. What would Americans on the Texas Gulf Coast and Rio Grande do if 300,000 Mexican soldiers took up arms at the border? With tanks, artillery, and helicopters, they park warships off Galveston. Then, on a dark, moonless night, they cross the Rio Grande, capture the Galveston port, then sail to Houston and shell it day and night. Within 3 days they take it, and then the Texas capital, San Antonio. The Mexican government claims that Texas illegally joined the USA in 1846. It was never a real state. It was always Mexican. Mexico's leader says Texans are not real people. They are inferior. Their news media begs the government to kill all Texans. They bomb apartment buildings, shopping centers, and churches to frighten residents, to make them flee. And they do, of course. Hundreds of thousands of Texan women and children drive north to Kansas City, Denver, Chicago, with what they can fit in the back of a truck. What would the Texas good old boys? Would they run also? Hell no. That's what their guns are for. What if the occupant of the Oval Office says, each side has its opinions? I can settle this in one day. Let's give the Wookiee what he wants. What if the Wookiee wants New Mexico, Arizona, Southern California? When I was in Budapest in March, I visited a school for Ukrainian refugee children called Ukrainian Space, run by an old friend from southern Russia. I heard firsthand the stories about refugee families from their mothers and met their children. These were only 17 families, maybe 50 women and children, of more than 8.2 million Ukrainian refugees. Tonight, you will hear the stories of 2 of these refugee women and their children. Their husbands, fathers, sons, even grandfathers stayed in Ukraine and now have guns in their hands. Vera is 35 and was a supermarket cashier near Poltava, a city of 286,000 in eastern Ukraine, 185 kilometers southwest of the Russian border. The Poltava region is a black soil area famous for its grain, tobacco, sugar beets. It also has a military air base. Vera and her husband have 2 children, Victor, age 10, and Valeria, age 3.
My son, Victor, sat on the sofa in his Harry Potter robe in our house near the forest, and we heard shots. We call this a Hadiak safari, when hunters from the nearby village Hadiak chase Russians hidden in the forests. This is one of my first memories of the war. Our village had been sleepy, as if no one lived there, and we were not ready for war. Then the village defense forces said that they had seen drones. They told us that enemy soldiers were hidden in the woods, and they warned us to stay out of the woods. It reminded us of World War II films. My children and I left by car, and my husband stayed behind. We drove 2 hours east to Kharkiv, and then backtracked west 4.5 hours towards Kremenchuk, and then 360 kilometers further west towards Uman. We celebrated Valeria's 3rd birthday while sitting in traffic for 6 hours. That first night, we camped at a school in Ukraine's world-famous black soil fields, and they stretched to the horizon all around us. And I thought, this is what the Russians want, our endless black soil land. The next day, we took a zigzag route west, and we finally reached the far western Ukraine. Kind villagers were there, and they gave us complete strangers homemade dumplings. And then we drove south through a snowstorm towards the Moldova and Romanian borders. By then, we had driven 4 days across all of Ukraine to find a safe way out. And my children were so quiet. Valeria understood everything. She was only 3. My husband called when we were near the Moldova border. He warned me that there were minefields near the border and that an attack might come from there. But then we saw our military driving towards us. What a relief. At last we arrived in Transcarpathia, the mountainous western border of Ukraine, and it was very sunny, and we felt safe. At the Hungarian border, we caught a train to Budapest. The children don't want to hear anything about the war. Our youngest son, Victor, just wants to go home to his dad. And my children wonder when.
Yulia was a hairdresser in a village near Bakhmut, a city of 78,000, 120 miles west of the Russian border. Bakhmut is home to the famous winery and large salt mine. Yulia and her husband have 2 sons, Artyom, age 26, and Andrei, age 19, and a daughter, Melina, age 13.
When the war began, we lived in the Bakhmut in the Donetsk region. My eldest son, Artyom, lived in northeastern Ukraine, 35 kilometers from the Russian border. In the first months of the invasion, several times he thought he was in his last hours. Once, a 5-story apartment building collapsed in front of him. Corpses scattered all around. He walked 10 kilometers to meet friends to try to evacuate. First, they drove 180 kilometers northwest to Sumy, near the Russian border. They wanted to meet us in Bakhmut, but they missed that first convoy of 10 buses. Thank God they missed it. It was shot up by invaders. When he and his girlfriend found this out, they bought a bottle of vodka and they drank it down in a couple of gulps. They didn't feel anything. That night they hid in a forest. In the morning they caught a train that took them 400 kilometers to the west. We were still in Bakhmut, and I was with Andrei and Milena. The buildings around us shook from the Russian shelling. They fired rockets at the apartment buildings. I cried a lot. It helped, but Milena did not cry. She was strong. She kept her feelings to herself. And for a time, she would not talk. She did not talk. She could not talk. A few weeks later, we caught a train to Hungary. My husband stayed behind in Bakhmut. We were packed together on the train like a scene from a film. The children slept in the upper berths and the adults below. The Ukrainian border guards didn't let Andrei cross the border because he was 19. He went back home to join the army. Milena's blood pressure soared. She started to lose consciousness. Every night she was plagued by dreams of Russians breaking into our house and of completely dark railway stations. She would wake up screaming, "Mom, where are you?" When we reached Hungary, Milena slept calmly for the first time. Before we left Bakhmut, she had been given a large toy dog as a present. Since then, she still sleeps embracing this dog. We had some problems with the right-wingers in Hungary. They bullied Milena, but she fought back in kind. She had taken karate lessons. Her teachers praise her, though, because she is very polite. A relative of mine in Mariupol was thrown in jail. The Russians released her, but she still doesn't know where her husband and son is. My brother and my niece died last April during the bombing of the bus station in Kramatorsk. I heard that by August, everything in Bakhmut had been burned. When the Russists came, the village priest and his deacon went to the streets in their church vestments to try to stop them. They were shot. I sing. I sing in a Ukrainian choir in Budapest. We even performed for the president of Hungary.
And we'll end our piece tonight with a poem by Lou Bolster.
Again, I am called upon to feel sadness, the kind which is heavy, the kind that brings shallow breath, a fetal curl, and robs sleep. As machinations of war are moved into place half a world away, where blue sky and yellow fields of grain sway, I am sure I can feel the earth tremor under the weight. Again, I am called upon to weep for shattered peace, weep for mothers who suddenly have none to care for fathers who become the same, for the young who lose their guiding lights of love and caring. Weep for those who give parts or all of their physical being. Yes, weep for humanity and to grieve. Again, I am called upon to hope that those in power make wise, balanced choices, hope that those that can support those that do, hope that even as spring rounds the corner and sunflower sprouts push their way through the earth, fertilized with blood and tears and hubris and courage, that calmness will prevail, that the best of humanity will bloom. Again, I am called upon to be a light, as no darkness can survive the smallest spark. I know I can do this. I must. That I can be and maintain my light even in the oppressive dark fog. I can because I know that you are next to me doing the same, and that your loved ones are next to you. And on and on and on. Yes, we light it up, and darkness is pulled back into a black hole of its own making.